Next item on the agenda is a report regarding the removal of holding symbol Destiny Estates. And Brian is taking us through that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The aim of this particular report is to recommend that bylaw 51815, being a bylaw to remove the holding H symbol as noted from the zoning of Phase 2 of the Destiny Estates Plan of Subdivision be approved. Back on November the 16th, 2015, Council approved zoning bylaw amendment application ZBH 124, which was the removal of the holding H symbol in question from the second phase of the Destiny Estates Plan of Subdivision. Subsequent to that meeting, notice of intention of the removal of the holding symbol was published in the local newspaper on November the 18th, 2015, fulfilling the requirement of the Planning Act. In conclusion, administration is in a position to state that the application as proposed is consistent with the direction of the provincial policy statement, is in keeping with the overall goals and policies of the official plan, including section 7.3 referenced in the previous planning report, and satisfies the criteria to be considered when amending the zoning bylaw. In conclusion, the recommendation being put forward is that zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA number 124 to amend the zoning for land zone as Phase 2 of the Destiny Estates Plan of Subdivision to remove the holding H symbol be approved, and that the clerk be directed to forward the amending bylaw number 51815 to council for its consideration.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments? Councillor Jacobs.
Thank you, Your Worship. Brian, with this removing of the H now, that gives them the opportunity now to apply building permits and they can go ahead with construction. Is that the bottom line for this?
Just about. There's a couple of minor applications that need to be done before that. The county is, with the previous application, there was a red line amendment that was approved for the draft plan of subdivision. The county received where the county has no concerns with that. So the next step for the applicant is to register the actual final plan of subdivision for the second phase. So once that's done, the lots will be officially created and registered. Then the applicant can make the applications for their building permits for each respective lot in the plan of subdivision.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the recommendation.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor Verbeke with comment.
With a question. So, not that we don't like seeing Larry Santos here, but does he have to come back before council again, or? I mean, it seems like it's Groundhog Day. We, just keep. I'm using Tim's words.
This is the final report for this application. There is another one that will be coming forward. It's a zoning bylaw amendment. It's for site-specific zoning for a number of the lots with the second phase and third phase of the subdivision. What it's proposing is reduction in front yard setback, reduction in exterior side yard setback, and it's allowing a greater lot coverage. So that's something that is in the works right now. It's going to management tomorrow, and we're looking to bring that forward as soon as possible. So that's the second part of it.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. Any questions or comments on that motion? All in favor of the motion? And carried. Next item on the agenda is a report regarding fee schedules. Ramona.
This report is to obtain approval for the Municipality of Leamington's 2016 fee schedule. The fees are reviewed annually and adopted under municipal bylaw for implementation on January 1st of the following fiscal year. The proposed fee schedule has comparative data for the 2015 fees, and the proposed fee schedule has been compiled based on input from the various departments. There are a number of highlights for changes to the 2016 fee schedule. They are at the complex that new fees are recommended to account for pickleball, age 55 plus badminton, trade shows, and pool advertising for second signs. And there's other various adjustments within the fee schedule for the complex. Under Schedule B for arena fees, there are some new fees recommended for additional advertising space and some recommended changes to ice rates. For planning and building, there are various fee changes recommended as presented previously in other planning reports. And current planning fees do not cover the costs of staff time, external costs, and materials for processing each application. Under Schedule M, there's a new fee recommended related to bylaw enforcement for noncompliance at re-inspection. The recommendation is that the proposed 2016 fee schedule be approved and that the clerk be directed to bring forward bylaw 52415 to council for its consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. And I know council has a few questions lined up, so maybe we'll just start with the Schedule A Leamington Kinsman Recreation Complex. And Councillor Hammond?
Your Worship, thanks. I'd like to address this to Ramona if I can. I've noticed that the 12 and the 6 and the 3-month daily use has been eliminated completely. And what's the reason for that? Are we targeting or helping a specific age group, or why would that be eliminated?
I'll pass that question along
Off
to Tracy to
Okay,
answer.
thanks. Sorry, Tracy.
Yes, there was a reduced fee for during the day, but what was happening is that people who wanted to have the full day membership was actually getting less options, and they were paying more money than the daytime memberships who were getting more options. So we just found that it would be fair for both all-day memberships and daytime-only memberships. And over the years, there had been a gap, starting at about $150 between the two. Slowly, we've been just trying to minimize that gap to a point where we can remove it completely, and it just makes it a lot easier for membership promotions and tracking and reporting for council.
If I may, Jen, just a little further, when I read through this, I wondered if it wasn't to, I know we have a number of people that would prefer, for economic reasons, to walk around the arena as opposed to the track upstairs, and I wondered if that wasn't the group that you were trying to help out, to give them a little more flexibility to be able to use the track during the day.
Oh, and that is a separate group that can use the track if they want, as opposed to using the recreation track.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else in regard to the Kinsman? Councillor Jacobs?
Thank you, Your Worship. If I may, to Ramona, you use in your report here a number of occasions comparative increases. What are you basing comparative increases on? To whom and to where or whatever?
Councillor Jacobs, I did speak with the Recreation Department on that, and those comparative increases are comparing our rates to neighboring municipalities, both in Chatham-Kent and neighboring municipalities within the County of Essex.
You're ensuring we're in a competitive basis then with these different organizations then?
I believe so. Tracy could answer that better.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
I too had one just for interest's sake, so Tracy, I will direct this to you. The elimination of the practice time for the junior hockey club, what is the reasoning behind that, or the thinking?
The elimination was based on there weren't a lot of usage for that fee, and that it just worked out better if we just include the ice time as one fee.
Okay, if that's it for the complex, then, well, does that fall under arena fees then as well, or is that, do we have separate questions on? Nope, good. Planning and building? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor, I thought you wanted just the items that were in the initial report. You want to go through each? All right. Well, all right. Sure. I'll have to call up that report then, but go ahead. Yep. Yes.
Thank you. As far as fire services go, and I know that other communities, when our fire department responds to motor vehicle incidents and so forth, do we have the ability to charge the insurance companies for non-residents in those particular cases? I know other communities do, or not all, but I'm aware that some do. And I just wondered if we do, and if we don't, why not, or is it a possibility?
The ability is there. We have not chosen to bring any reports to council to request authorization to go ahead and charge it. We just find that if there is a charge, there may be some resistance to call emergency services. If people were on our municipal roads and felt that they were in trouble, and we didn't want to discourage that. We just wanted everybody to be able to call when they need help.
So when we are doing extrications and so forth, and they're at the scene for a period of time, I guess where I'm going with this is the fact that we have the ability, though, to charge insurance companies for cost recoveries. I'm not basically saying that we should charge an individual if they're requiring assistance, but in the case of motor vehicle accidents and so forth, I guess that's where I'm looking at.
Currently, we do not charge for insurance claims. That's something that the automobile or vehicle owner would do directly.
Explore that particular area in the future, or at budget time or whatever?
Yep. Sure. Peter?
Sure, we can take a look at that. We'll take a look at some of the surrounding communities as well. I know that Kingsville charges for sending out pumper or whatever it is. So we may not get that for the 2016 fees, but we'll explore that in the meantime, and at the very least bring it back next year.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to go back to my question, Tracy, on the junior hockey club. I guess I'm not understanding what we're going to charge them for practice time. Are we charging them anything? Are we charging them the same as we're charging minor hockey? Or are they not practicing? Because we charge them 500, it's page 31 of 101. We're charging $527 per game. We were charging $157 for practice time. I just wondered why we're eliminating the fee. Are we not charging them anything? I'm fine with whatever you do. I just would like to understand the reason, so if someone asks me, I can explain it.
Right. So just to clarify, the prime time per hour rate is $157, which was what the rate was before. So we're just trying to simplify and just have the one rate. So they would be charged $157.
If I may, though, but we've taken it out of the 2016 fees as an eliminate fee.
So we would charge the very top under ICE rates. There is
Oh,
a
the
prime time rate per hour,
159?
157. Yeah, so 159 is the new.
With the new, okay,
new
all
rate.
right,
So it's
Perfect.
the same rate, so it's just one same.
perfect. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Peter?
Maybe I can help a little bit in that. The principle under which we are working with our fees is first and foremost to try and consolidate where we can, because with every different category, it creates more administrative work. For what? I mean, you can see that the cost is essentially the same. So rather than having numerous accounts, what we're doing while we're looking at the fees, we're also trying to reduce administrative time with these things. So in principle, we're trying to become more efficient.
Anything else on fire services, where we were? So we're okay on the arena fees, though? We're good? Okay. Fire services? Anything else? Marina fees? Councillor Jacobs.
Thank you, Worship. This doesn't have to do with the fees mainly, and I think this goes back to Ramona as well. The U.S. dollar for our visitors that's coming in, and I guess we have some Americans that own property here as well. What are we doing, and what's our policy for the exchange rate now that it's become such an issue? How do we adjust that, or do we adjust, or how do we calculate?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Jacobs, we do have a policy for the U.S. exchange rate. We adjust it weekly. We use the RBC buy rate weekly, and every Friday we adjust that rounding down to the nearest 5 cents.
And then we're looking at planning and building fees. Councillor Hammond?
Your worship, thanks again. The one that, again, on this page that kind of jumps out is the reduction in the condominium fees that were $5,000 and now are going to $2,500. Plan of subdivision. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on page 38. Oh, yes, so I am. I'm reading it backwards. It's gone up 2,500, yeah.
That's correct.
Did you need an explanation of that?
No,
or-
Yeah, I had it highlighted, yeah. I had it highlighted. It just seemed like quite a jump, that was all. That was why I was asking.
And so do you need an explanation? No? You're okay?
Yeah, still quite a jump.
Finance and business services? Nothing? Parks and seasonal facilities? Councillor Jacobs.
Thank you, Worship. Just out of curiosity, why are we, like, do we rent out our equipment, like our sweeper, road graders, front-end loaders, trucks? We have them all billed here at per hourly rates. Like, are we renting them out, or do we capture some of that cost somewhere, or?
Mr. Sharon?
Through you, Mayor Patterson, we do not rent out. We don't have equipment for hire. However, there are times where we do have to do work, and there is bill-back requirements for the work that we do, either to private landowners or to insurance companies, and these are the rates that we use to justify those bill-back amounts.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
Again, another for my own information, and I'm a slower page turner than you are. I'm still at Finance and Business Services. I wanted to ask you, Ramona, about the refund/misposting of payment. We charge $25 when we make a mistake?
No, that is when the client makes a mistake and we need to do the correction on their behalf.
All right. Anything else? No? Anything else that we did? We were on parks, right? Parks and seasonal? Nothing? Water services? Oh, pardon me, I skipped transit fees. Pollution control, sorry. Moving too quickly through here. Pollution control. Questions? Transit? Water services? Engineering? Anybody have anything highlighted beyond there, rather than me repeating everything? Councillor Jacobs.
Thank you. I have just one more, and it's regarding the bylaw enforcement, a new fee. What is that? Like, what fee are we imposing? Here we go.
Ms. Horton.
If you can.
This is a new fee. It will be imposed if council passes the new bylaw. When our bylaw enforcement officers attend and based on a complaint for a bylaw enforcement, let's say for a property standards matter, for example, and they attend the property and note the infraction, they will leave a notice advising that the owner needs to contact bylaw enforcement or they need to clean it by a certain date. If that doesn't happen and bylaw enforcement attends the residence or the property, finds it still out of compliance, the fee will be charged for that attendance. If it's in compliance, there will not be a fee charged, but it's a cost recovery mechanism and it's also a slight incentive to have people bring their properties into compliance more quickly.
Thank you, and overdue.
Okay, Deputy Mayor.
Absolutely, it's putting teeth into our bite. And it's It's long overdue. I'm very happy to see that. I wrote excellent with little exclamation marks. Very happy to see that because we have the habitual people who don't clean up. Doesn't matter how many times our officers go. This is excellent. I'd be willing to bump it up.
I put hugs and kisses beside mine. All right. Any further questions on the fees? Moved by Councillor Verbeke, supported by Councillor Hammond. Discussion on that motion? All in favor? And carried. Move on to the next report, which is one regarding the Union Gas transmission line. And Mr. Sharon?
Thank you, Mayor Patterson. The report before council tonight is seeking council's approval to grant an easement to Union Gas for the construction of a pipeline along the former rail lines owned by the municipality, which is now our Trans-Canada Trail. This is a continuation of initiative that Union Gas started in 2013, as council will see from the map that's up on the screen right now. The section in green is a pipeline. A municipality granted Union Gas an easement, and Union Gas built this pipeline in 2013. And they're now looking to construct the pipeline from County Road 14, the 9th concession, down to County Road 18, which is our 4th concession. This would be a total distance of 7 kilometers. And it is a non-exclusive easement, which essentially means so long as regulatory setbacks are met, other infrastructure can exist within the corridor. Specifically, our water main is already there, so the pipeline needs to be designed accordingly, and the future electricity transmission lines as well. One of the things I wanted to point out is when Hydro One did their assessment and chose their preferred route, they were running down our corridors, I think council is aware, but the corridor certainly wasn't wide enough. And so there was always a part of that plan was land purchase from adjacent property owners so that the electricity line could be built. And so I can't say specifically at this point if putting in this natural gas pipeline easement is going to impact their property negotiations and property purchases, but a worst case scenario is that they would have to buy a meter or two more of land off the private property owners had the gas line not existed. But again, the gas line is a very important piece of municipal infrastructure that drives economic growth as well. Unfortunately, this particular proposal is being made to the municipality. I don't want to focus on the negative, but we all know that this is a built-up the trail to its pre-existing condition. That's a standard clause in our agreements with them. They will do that. But the unfortunate part is the fact that the trail will have to be closed from basically the spring of 2016 until the fall of 2016 throughout this section. Now the trail will be open north of 14 and it extends all the way up into Lakeshore to County Road 46. I did reach out personally to Union Gas when we were getting ready to build the trail and recognizing that this part of their pipeline was part of their strategic plan in Leamington. Unfortunately, they were unable to give me a date, unable to tell me if the project would even be approved, and unable to obviously tell me, when and if we could try and somehow coordinate the projects. So unfortunately, we weren't able to have that coordination on the projects. Subsequent to us building the trail, their approval processes and demand, it speaks to the need for the pipeline because they were able to do the things they needed to do on their business case to make it a viable project. And now they're looking to come in and build it. So the trail, unfortunately, will have to be closed through that section. For consideration purposes, the Union Gas, we've negotiated with Union Gas, they've agreed to pay the municipality $500,000 for the easement. Our recommendation is that that easement be placed into the municipal trail reserve account, and that's consistent with what we did with the easement payment of $200,000 for the first section of pipeline, and those funds would be used to develop future trails in the municipality, and that's consistent again with the sort of long-term vision that council set up in the late 1990s, early 2000s with regards to this corridor. So the recommendation before council tonight is that the municipality enter into an easement agreement with Union Gas for installing a natural gas pipeline, that the municipality execute this agreement in a form consistent with the contents of this report, so the consideration, the other things that were included in this report, and that is acceptable to the municipal solicitor, and that the proceeds from this easement be deposited to the municipal trail reserve.
Thank you very much. And I can, well, okay, moved by Councillor Jacobs and supported by Deputy Mayor. Just a quick comment, I can confirm what Mr. Sharon is saying, though, that Union Gas has been in regular contact with me and with our CAO as well, and with you, Mr. Sharon, I know, keeping us informed of what's going on. And this did really come a lot quicker than they expected, phase 2 on this issue. Phase 1, they were a little bit nervous about. They got to push through the OEB. And by the time they were done, they already were starting to apply for phase 2. That's how quickly it sold out. So it's really great news. The bad news is that we've already built a trail, and so now they're going to disturb that. But at the same time, you know, our businesses are going to be that much further enhanced by that. And I don't know if they've mentioned to you too, they're going to be undertaking a huge expansion of the Panhandle line. Have they mentioned that to you yet? I just got that call late last week indicating that. So even better for southwestern Ontario that this is all happening. And their contribution of $500,000 is going to go a long way, just as it did the last time. It was 200 or 250, 200, somewhere in there. So well used. So the panhandle, they call it the Panhandle. So right from wherever their major gas station is. And I can't remember. I can remember it in my head seeing the map, but I can't remember the name of the town. Yes. Yep. Yep. So, Councillor Verbicki.
With the mayor, is there any discussion in maybe not closing the trail on the north end when they put the hydro in? Can they do both things at the same time? The new hydro line coming in?
The hydro line timing is entirely up to Hydro 1. So we're pushing as hard as we can on that. It won't happen in conjunction. I know it won't, but that would be a dream. Yeah, probably not. Any other questions? So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor of that motion? And carried. Next item on the agenda is a report regarding County Road 20 multi-use trail. Mr. Sharon again.
Thank you, Mayor Patterson. Council will note in the report I did spend some time for the benefit of our new council on the background of CWATS. I'm not going to get into that tonight, but I thought it was good background information, good history and perspective for council in dealing with this specific issue. This specific report deals with County Road 20 and the proposed multi-use trails that were identified in the CWATS study to be built along County Road 20. Which is the project that our council identified as our #1 priority within CWATS when we were dealing with those issues in 2011, 2012. The County Road 20 project was a 1.5 meter wide trail on both sides of County Road 20. It was meant to, when it was designed under the CWATS study, it was meant to deal with both pedestrian and bicycle traffic. As we proceeded on that project, as is outlined in the report, we ran into some challenges with regards to scope, and primarily it had to deal with the curbing. And as council is aware, we've been back and forth with the county on the cost-sharing responsibilities or obligations with regards to curbing. But council will notice that that is not at the heart of this particular report because of other things that have happened with regards to County Road 20 and some strategic initiatives that the county is undertaking right now with County Road 20. The county, last Wednesday at the county council meeting, awarded an environmental assessment to improvements along County Road 20 to Dillon Consulting. What that means, and my understanding based on some questions from our representatives on county council, is that between now and a target date of summer of 2016, that the County Council is looking to build the long-term strategic plan for County Road 20. And what does long-term mean? Again, my understanding from their responses to our reps was that they're looking at potentially, 2020 to completely reconstruct County Road 20 from Fraser Road all the way to County Road 31. So the reason that, spent some time on this report talking about the initial concept of improvements of the multi-use trail at County Road 20 under CWATS, and the fact that initially that particular project was identified as about a $960,000 project, and frankly, without the curbing considerations at the $2.4 million that we're at today, of which $1 million is the curbing, the initial estimate wasn't terrible. But the fact of the matter is we are looking at potentially a $2.5 million investment estimated at this particular point in time, perhaps growing, to build our multi-use paths, while at the same time the county undertakes a study to look at what should the road look like to address these long-term plans, both active transportation and pedestrians and cyclists. And it is my recommendation to council that it wouldn't be prudent for us to actively pursue an interim solution while we're looking at, given the dollar value. I mean, maybe if it was a $900,000 consideration, and if perhaps it was 2025, it would be a different discussion. But we're talking about what has been communicated to council as a 5-year potential window between now and the ultimate improvements and constructions to County Road 20. And given the fact that we're talking about $2.5 million in multi-use paths, as well as the potential for the county to spend, based on their planning documents, up to $1 million in road resurfacing in 2017, 2018, it is my recommendation to council through this report that the municipality, at this particular point in time, do nothing more with County Road 20 than support the County of Essex in their initiative to move forward with the environmental assessment and to spend the time, energy, money, get additional feedback from residents, and put a long-term design in place for this section of road. And at that particular time, we can start working towards strategies. It could potentially be an interim strategy if that long-term design solution looks like it's not feasible to achieve by 2020. If it's some date well off into the future, it may be a different discussion. But at this particular point in time, given the fact that we're looking to study the road, that we simply wait, we involve ourselves as stakeholders into that EA process, and we allow that to play out, and we take a look at what that recommendation for County Road 20 is, and then we work towards solutions to address. And it's inherent. We acknowledge the fact that the road has condition issues right now. There's a number of pictures in the report that shows the state of the curbing, and we recognize that the road is currently deficient with regards to active transportation infrastructure. But again, given the fact that they've now awarded this study and they're undertaking this long-term design, our recommendation is that we support that, and we'll report back to council when we get the results of that.
Okay, thank you very much. And just for council's information, the deputy mayor and I represented Leamington, obviously, at county on Wednesday and raised similar questions there. The answer we got back was the EAA should be finished by August of 2016. At which time, I can't remember now, Mr. Sharon, how did I respond to you that at that time they would then be able to make some sort of a decision as to when in the future they would see the work done, correct? But currently it stands at 2020 before they do anything, so 5 years out. Okay, so any questions from Mr. Sharon on this report? Councillor Wilkinson?
Thank you, Worship. Rob, can you verify that environmental assessment that's going to go out? That's going to go out to all the residents of County Road 20, correct? And there's going to be public input sought through that environmental assessment?
Through Mayor Patterson, that's correct. There's absolutely stakeholder. That's a big part of that entire process, is to have receive public input, both from the residents that live along there, the municipality, other stakeholders, the public at large.
I share your thoughts too. I think it's not prudent for us to advance this any further right now, and we pull out due to the current situation. But we do have a lot of people that are very passionate out there. On our 2015 budget, this was one of the things that I liked the most. Of all the trails that we've done, this was the one that really hit home for me, and it hit home for others. Not only for our migrant worker community to keep them safe, but the people who exercise. So you see many of them running along 18 all the time. One resident invited me out to walk the path. I never walk down or exercise down community roads, but one resident did bring me out there, and it is in terrible shape, how it is humped up and over. I sympathize with all the people that use that, and the worst case scenario here is one of these days we're going to have a tragic accident along there. Rob, can you give recommendations to the people who are really passionate about seeing these trails go in? Of course, they need to fill out those environmental assessments, I think, is the first step that they really need to go hard on. Is there any other suggestions that they could, should they be lobbying the county council? Is there any other ways that they can get involved to express their concern over this?
Through Mayor Patterson, certainly. Some of the things you mentioned already, when requests go out for stakeholder input, by all means participate. It means something. When there's public meetings, come out to the public meetings, share your stories, let the designers and the people reviewing the situation know what you perceive as the challenges. Lobby your county council representatives, county council. Everyone who lives in the County of Essex is a citizen of the County of Essex in a very similar way that we would expect our residents to come here and talk to our council. I would expect our residents to attend county council meetings when this particular issue is on the county council agenda, and register as a delegate, let county council know how you feel about this particular project and why. Because the challenge will be, once the design is established, then trying to establish what the construction date will be. And certainly, Leamington residents letting their county council representatives know that it's a very important project to them and that there's safety concerns, and the sooner that the project can get built, the better, I think will go a long way.
And just to clarify one point, there's no sense lobbying the deputy mayor and I because we're on side with this project. So the ones you want to get to are the, I would say, the 2 Kingsville reps, the 2 Amherstburg reps, and the 2 Essex reps, because we're all on the south side of the border. Anyway, I have Councillor Verbeke up next.
For the mayor, when you read the agenda for the first time, I was a little scared on the recommendation was going to be on this. But I'm very impressed with the recommendation and the action that's taken. We can't afford it right now. So at that point, I'd like to move the recommendation.
Okay, so the recommendation is moved. Do I have a supporter? Councillor Dunn. I do have more comments listed here, so Mr. Neufeld.
I think it's important to understand a couple of things. Number one, this is a county-owned road. It's county infrastructure, so the municipality of Leamington does not own this road. The second part is that, well, you may have read into the report. I think it needs to be said that administration, and I believe council, are frustrated with the state of this road and with the amount of time it's taking to get this trail built. We are, or were, essentially ready to go. There have been many discussions back and forth between Leamington's administration and the county's administration about trying to get this project done. But unfortunately, the turn that it took, it became first incredibly expensive. And while we're still willing to look at how we can get this project done, it became apparent that if the county is going to move in a regard on their own infrastructure that says they may be digging up this infrastructure within a short amount of time, regardless of how frustrated we are, it just doesn't make financial sense to be dumping millions of dollars into a path only to have it torn up in the near future. And we don't really know what the near future, what that definition of near is. So even though you may be able to read it into the report, and Mr. Sharon remains and tries to be dispassionate about the report and give only the facts. I think the fact is that we are frustrated by this, and we would like to see this project get done.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the county installed that, I'm going to call it a gutter, because to me it's a gutter. When you ride your bike, you're in a gutter. If you're not careful, you tip yourself into the traffic or into the brushes on the side. So they did install that. That was their design, the gutter?
Curb.
V-curb.
Yep.
That was theirs. They designed it. So it would be their responsibility to fix it.
Yeah.
We drove that yesterday, and there's quite a bit of traffic on Highway 20. And this was on the Kingsville side. There was a migrant worker, a young woman, driving. All of a sudden, she veered into the traffic. There was a hole, probably 3 inches deep, between the edge of the gutter and the road. It's a shame when we drive down that, when you see all the broken pieces of cement in the grass and stuff growing in between the cracks. It's terrible. And I will say, yes, people need to be delegates. They need to apply to be delegates. Last week, we had a gentleman who was a delegation unto himself who came and complained about the fact that we lower speed limits. So if somebody is complaining about the fact that we're lowering speed limits, and they get airtime, and believe me, he had lots of airtime, and nothing to back him up. Anybody who's concerned about this section of road needs to be a delegate and needs to get other people to come and speak. County Council is more than willing to listen, and when they give you more than 5 minutes, you've got time to make your point. And really, the other councillors, the other mayors and deputy mayors, they all listened. So please, please be there when it comes time for the rubber to hit the road on this one, because we really need your support. And the EA study needs to know what you're thinking and how you're affected by it.
Further comments? I mean, I have a request of council, and you can tell me no. Okay. We had a gentleman who wanted to speak to this issue as a delegation, and he attempted to submit his name on Friday and on Monday, but our clerk was absent, and anyway, just couldn't pull this off. But he is here this evening to speak to this issue. So first of all, I'm wondering if council is interested in allowing that to happen, which would require a motion. But in order to have a new motion brought on the floor, I would have to have the initial motion to pass this report removed for the time being. Well, that's a good question. Dave is here. Hand up, Dave. Dick. Okay. Hearing the comments from council, do you still need to speak to council? You're good? Okay. Very good. All right. Then we have a motion on the floor. What are council's wishes? All in favor of that motion? And carried. Thank you very much. All right. Moving on to, did I miss it? Oh, it's at the end. Yeah. The next report is one regarding the quick request for direction regarding East Marsh Dike reconstruction. And Mr. Sharon, I assume, is taking us through this, and then we do have a few delegations here this evening.
Thank you, Mayor Patterson. In introducing and reviewing this report, again, Council will note that there was some history provided in the report on Southeast Leamington, and there will likely be a lot of discussion on that. So in the interest of time and in discussing this report, I thought I would begin by simply introducing the issue at hand, specific to the dike, bring it into the context of Southeast Leamington as a whole, and why this is an important decision of council, again, in the context of all of Southeast Leamington and the existing land uses of Southeast Leamington. In August of 2014, Council gave first and second reading to a bylaw to accept a bylaw in the drainage engineer's report for improvements on the East Marsh Dike, and they then directed that issue to be brought to the Court of Revision. So again, that was August 2014, August of last year. In September of that same year, the Court of Revision heard from impacted landowners and referred them, after hearing from impacted landowners, they referred the matter back to council. Which, we're not going to get into the technicalities. It's probably typically outside of the jurisdiction of a court of revision to do those sorts of things. But they did so nonetheless. They basically referred the matter back to council and requested that the matter of, how the costs would be determined, how the ability to pay should be considered in this particular scenario. In the context of Southeast Leamington, and again, I provided information in the report, but this was essentially, the matter of reconstructing East Marsh Dike is essentially step one, or the first piece of infrastructure the municipality is looking at, again, in the context of the required infrastructure improvements of Southeast Leamington, the others being repairs and improvement to the Lloyd drainage scheme, another one being the repairs and improvements of Maritet dikes and drainage schemes, and the reconstruction of Road C in Southeast Leamington. So specific to the East Marsh Dike, in this particular report, administration is proposing to council that there are basically two diligent ways in which council can elect to go at this particular point in time. The first being, given the decisions of the past that I referenced in the report and in 2010, to basically maintain the existing land uses of Southeast Leamington and reconstruct all of this infrastructure. And holding, I guess, with that direction and that principle, to basically reaffirm their position and direct the Court of Revision to deal with their mandated responsibilities. That would be one. And essentially what that is saying is this construction project is going forward because it's a vital part of this, of the process of reconstructing the infrastructure of East Marsh Dike, with the long-term goals of having, I guess, a sustainable land use, and even, and I'll use sustainable land use simply and define it at this particular point in time simply by saying, all of the required vital infrastructure related to those four things I spoke of are reconstructed to a modern standard and in line with the technical conclusions that have been arrived at to date. The second proposed option to council would be to rescind the bylaws and the first and second reading that was given to the report in August of 2014, to receive the report. And so essentially by that we're saying council is not directing administration and not saying let's go ahead and build it. Council is going to receive that report, but in conjunction with doing that, what we feel is important is that council acknowledges that given the cost of this infrastructure and frankly, more importantly, the ability or lack of ability to pay for the reconstruction of the infrastructure, that council acknowledge that sustainable land uses as they exist, meaning sustained and ongoing residential and agricultural land uses ongoing in perpetuity into the future, are unsustainable, and to direct administration to look at some options to come back and talk to council about. So, what does that mean, or at least what does it mean in the eyes of your current administration with the CAO, myself, and other senior administrators? In regards to real change, one of the things that I think is important to talk about in option 2 is option 2 doesn't actually change anything right now, meaning any decision that is related to option 2 that has to do with potential change in policies in the OP, other types of discussions that we can have with long-term land uses of Southeast Leamington, all of those things will be subject to council approval. They'll all have to come back to council and discussions will have to be had. But what it means for us is that there's some acknowledgement that a path was set in 2010, and it's essentially acknowledging that that perhaps is an unattainable goal to do those things that were said to happen in 2010, and this allows administration to start having those other types of discussions and other considerations that perhaps are not in line with that direction of 2010, but are more appropriate and could potentially bring forward to council and to the landowners some resolutions to the problems that they're dealing with down there, both in the short and in the long term. The third option I do include in the report for council consideration, and it's one that administration does not recommend, is to rescind the bylaws, receive the report, hold that direction of still rebuilding all of this infrastructure, with the idea of trying to find funding for this particular piece of infrastructure, while also, continuing to think about and planning reconstructing the additional infrastructure. That approach is somewhat problematic. In our opinion, as administration at this point in time, it's problematic because it does certainly pose short and medium-term infrastructure maintenance challenges. If you're saying that the plan is to reconstruct, you're certainly not going to be focusing on short and medium-term maintenance. The other thing it does is that it continues without resolution a lot of the problems that have been experienced down there, at least for the last decade, if not longer. Specific problems related to individualized flooding and shoreline protection and other types of issues, issues with the purchase and sale of lands where new owners of lands are not aware of the restrictions, either restrictions on development or expansion of lands, or just in general some of the problems that are experienced in the area. And so if there is some acknowledgement, then we can talk about what are some things that could happen. Now, I'll use the example of a residential lot that the owner is unable to build on that residential lot, but we don't have anything formally to acknowledge that, so that they're not taxed or their property isn't assessed as if it were a fully developable lot, which it would not be. And there's some unfairness there. New property owners that purchase land into the area, not to say that everyone who purchases land is going to look at OP and zoning and those sorts of things, but at least there could be some reference there to some of the challenges. Right now, a lot of new owners walk in without knowing the potential demand of cost, responsibility to pay for some of this infrastructure, and beyond that, some of the current restrictions on the property. It's good timing, Marianne. Marianne has the assessment cost schedule up because I did want to speak again, get back to specifically to the East Marsh Dike. When we completed the drainage engineer's report, the table up on the screen right now is what it's going to cost to build, or at least it's estimated cost to build this infrastructure to the new accepted design standards. And as council will see, it's $5.9 million. Of which $1.5 million of that comes to the municipality, and that's primarily for our road infrastructure that we own down there. About $2.5 million is direct landowner agricultural costs, about $500,000 for non-ag, and $1.3 million in estimated OMAFR grant based on the agricultural lands. So, and again, to put it into the context of all of Southeast Leamington, when this report was looked at and discussed by council, the matter of Southeast Leamington, the East Marsh Dike represented about 10% of the estimated costs of all of the infrastructure of Southeast Leamington. So it cannot predict that we would have the same results when we look at other projects, meaning the costs would increase the way that the costs of East Marsh Dike have increased. But if we were still at 10%, we're upwards well over $50 million now. And there's still a lot of technical work and investigation that would need to happen. So I just felt that particular issue, the fact that this is but 10% of the total required investment, brings some perspective on the ability to pay. And council will note that it is not typical that we do not provide a very specific recommendation to council despite the issue. We have not done so in this particular report. In fact, we've put the matter before council. We've tried to describe it as best we can for council, and we're seeking council direction.
Okay, so before I go to delegations, any questions from council to Mr. Sharon? No? Okay, so then I would invite Mr. Landshut up if he's, yep.
There it is, sorry. Good evening, Mayor. A few of the council members have been here over the few times I've spoken over the last 10 years or so, and I welcome all of the new council people as well. There was a flood back in 2004, May of 2004. Ken Smith, I think that we can all remember the young man's name. And his mandate was, as it is today apparently, to still convert this from farmland to wetland. We see large numbers, 5 million, 10 million, 35 million, now it's $50 million. Our scheme that is directly south of the Dike Road is about 1,100 acres of farmland. As you can see by these numbers, just for this particular phase here, if you divide the 2.6 million over that 1,100 acres, each one of us landowners would spend $2,500 per acre on this one phase. Councils have come and gone over the last 10 years. This is most likely the third election we've had since the flood, or since the rainfall of May 2004. And unfortunately for myself, as I've said to other council people, the only thing that's changed is I went from 44 years old to 54 years old. Reality, nothing has changed. The municipality needs to take hold of this situation. And the missing link in all of this is the human marsh protection along the shoreline. There's nothing been done, and as we see every time we have an east wind, northeast wind, the shoreline continues to erode mainly along the Hillman Marsh. If we don't protect the Hillman Marsh's property, eventually that entire beach line is going to be eroded, and the Hillman Marsh will then be exposed to the wave action of the lake. A lot of these costs can be mitigated by taking care of that shoreline directly east of the Hillman Marsh. And unfortunately, over the last 10 years, nothing has been developed, construed, engineered to look at that shoreline protection. All we continue to look at is the small group of farmers, which we are one of, or that I am one of, that have to burden the cost of $50 million, which is just enormously, incredibly out of mind when I think about spending $50 million on my small parcel of land. So for me, if this council does anything at all, we need to shit or get off the pot. We either need to say it's going to become wetland and let it happen, right? Or we're going to put this all back on the shelf and do nothing. But for myself, my wife, and my family, it's not fair for us to live in the purgatory where nothing virtually has been done in 10 years except for one major factor. We have probably spent millions of dollars on engineers' reports as per the direction of IRCA to hopefully convert this property between Hillman Marsh and Point Peely to the wetland connection that they wanted 10 years ago. That's all that we've done in 10 years. And I've been in the front of council at least a half a dozen times over the last 10 years with the same opinion. The costs are, as you could really imagine, we cannot afford, and we really need to get this put to bed some way or another, because there is no way in hell I'm going to be 64 and having to come back to council 3 or 4 or 6 more times in the next 10 years to plead this case again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Before you leave, are any questions from council? No questions? Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.